Okay, so there is a massive political scandal just blowing up in Iraq. We're talking about a surveillance campaign so huge people are calling it the country's Watergate. Now, this isn't just some local drama. Oh no, this has huge implications for Iraq's relationship with the United States and really the stability of the whole region. So let's unpack what's really going on here.
And to really get a sense of how serious this is, just listen to this. In a country that's seen, let's be honest, decades of political turmoil and corruption, this is the scandal that has left everyone, from politicians to regular folks on the street, completely and utterly shocked.
So that's the big question, right? What on earth could be so shocking that it stuns people who thought they'd seen it all? Well, let's get into it.
At its core, what we're looking at is a massive political surveillance operation, an eavesdropping campaign that was allegedly run from the very, very top, the Prime Minister's office. In that Watergate comparison, yeah, that's not just for drama. It points to a really deep and frankly dangerous breach of trust.
So, let's break this down into the two sides of the coin. Who was being spied on and who was doing the spying? Because the answers, well, they might surprise you.
You won't believe the target list. I mean, it's basically a who's who of the entire Iraqi state. We're talking about the head of the judiciary, Judge Faik Zaidan, former prime ministers, Nouri al-Maliki, Haider al-Abadi, even the acting speaker of parliament and leaders from all across the political map. Basically, if you were anyone with power, you were being watched. But, and this is the really interesting part, the real story isn't just who was on the list. It's about who wasn't.
In an operation this widespread, who you choose not to target can be just as revealing as who you do.
So one name was strangely, conspicuously absent from that surveillance list, Qais al-Khazali. He's the prime minister's closest supporter, and he leads a militia called Asa ibn al-Ahaq, or AAH. And get this, both Khazali and AAH are designated as terrorist entities by the United States, and they were the only ones not being watched?
So who was behind all of this? Well, reports are pointing to a cell operating directly out of the Prime Minister's office, and it was led by his inner circle. We're talking his military secretary, his security advisor, and even a relative he put in charge as the acting head of the Iraqi National Intelligence Service, which is also known as INIS.
And how'd they pull it off? This cell allegedly used the state's own resources. We're talking equipment, vehicles, and expert technicians, all from the National Intelligence Service. And their goal wasn't just to listen in. It was to actually create compromising material to entrap political figures. So the state's own intelligence agency was basically turned into a political weapon.
Which leads to the next big question. How did this even happen? How was Iraq's top intelligence agency, one of its most trusted institutions, turned into a tool for political spying? This really gets to the deeper, more systemic problem here.
The change was just dramatic. Before 2022, you had NIS, which was kind of the pride of Iraqi intelligence. It was built with help from the CIA. It was seen as a trusted partner by the West. But after 2022, under the new government, it was systematically purged of all those trusted officers and then infiltrated by Iran-backed militia.
And this timeline just shows you how fast it all went down. When Prime Minister Sudani's government came to power in 2022, boom, key officers trusted by the U.S. were purged. Then, by 2023, their jobs were filled by people with direct links to Iran-backed militias. The entire agency was basically captured from the inside out.
Okay, so this is where it gets really important for everyone watching outside of Iraq. This is not just an internal affair. Not at all. The fact that their top intelligence agency has been completely compromised, well, that's a massive red flag for the United States. I mean, Washington has relied on that partnership for years. So you can see why this scandal is a huge wake-up call, and it absolutely demands a serious, serious policy response.
So what should be done? This whole thing really demands a pretty serious response from Washington. And the first step is just facing a hard truth.
First things first, Washington has to stop turning a blind eye to Prime Minister Sudani's close ties to AAH, which, remember, is a designated terrorist organization. The fact that its leader seems to have this much influence over the Iraqi government, that just can't be ignored anymore. And that means the U.S. really needs to reevaluate its entire relationship with the Prime Minister.
All right, the second policy recommendation gets right at the immediate danger of this compromised intelligence.
The United States really has to pull back and greatly restrict intelligence cooperation with these now compromised agencies like INIS. Think about it. Sharing sensitive U.S. intel, equipment, or training with an agency that's been penetrated by Iran-backed militias is just way too risky.
This pullback could be used as leverage, right, to demand that these malign political appointees are removed.
And finally, the third recommendation zooms out to look at the bigger picture. See, this problem isn't just in the intelligence services. This whole trend of Iran-backed state capture has been speeding up across the entire Iraqi government. We're talking ministries, airport authorities, the whole shebang. So Washington needs to do a broad review of its ties with all Iraqi officials and really recognize just how deep this penetration goes.
And all of this leaves us with one final, really critical question. This scandal has pretty much shattered the illusion of a reliable security partnership. It's pulled back the curtain on a government where state institutions are being turned against political rivals. And it really makes you wonder, when a nation's own spies are being used against its own leaders, who can you possibly trust?